Greetings everyone. Jambo. Welcome to Marafiki Wellness Club, where exploring collective wellness is our way. We believe that personal commitment is the catalyst of lasting change. My name is Lillian Joki, or Rafiki Lillian. I'm many things. I'm a mom, wife, hospitalist, community organizer, but most of all, I see myself as an explorer when it comes to wellness. Rafiki means friend, Marafiki means friends. Here at Marafiki Wellness Club, this is a space rooted in the collective power of community, and its pillars are 5, which is restorative rest, nutritious foods, exercise, healthy relationships, and community contribution. Through expert insights, wellness events, and community-driven support, we are here to make well-being accessible, sustainable, and shared. Our first podcast is Myth or Medicine? How Critical Thinking and Fasting Can Transform Metabolic Health. I'm joined by 2 wonderful people, Dr. Fonkem and Albert Ochieng. Welcome. Albert, I will let you go first. Can you please introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, hi, everybody. My name is Albert Ochieng. I am a CPA, and basically what that means is I'm very into the health of your financials and your company as well as yourself. And I'm also into a little bit of personal health, and I'm glad to join this conversation to learn more about it.
Okay. And Dr. Fonkem, please introduce yourself a little bit to us.
Yes, I am Vedmia Fonkem, and I am a family medicine trained hospitalist with an interest in bariatrics. So I do medical weight loss and also some med spa.
Yeah, doing great things. So as I was telling everybody before, this is just an extension of what we were doing in our first meeting when we met with Marafiki Wellness Club. We have a section called Intellectual Wellness, whereby when we meet once a month, we normally talk about wellness. And the topics that we had last time was metabolic syndrome. And the second topic that we discussed on was critical thinking in a group setting. So the topic of the podcast today is Myth or Medicine? How Critical Thinking and Fasting Can Transform Metabolic Health. Wellness is a shared responsibility. However, personal commitment to wellness is a catalyst of lasting change. So the first question that I wanted to ask you is, what wellness myth you used to believe before researching it? Do you have any wellness myth that you used to have before you researched?
You know, one of the things I'm trying to do now is lose some weight. And I think one of the myths that I have encountered is that, you have to keep exercise. Exercise is the only thing that you have to do in order to lose weight. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm finding out that, for me personally, the more I work out, the less weight it seems that I'm losing. So I think that's a big myth for me personally that I've actually just encountered. And I'm doing more research on it, and I'm trying to find other ways of losing weight as I go forward.
Okay. What about you, Dr. Fonkem?
I'll kind of look into my mind. So yes, one of the myths which I used to hear a lot was that you can pretty much eat whatever you want to eat and then go work it out in the gym. And I easily came to realize that it just does not work that way. There's just no way you can out-exercise what you eat.
For me, it was I thought stretching before a workout prevented injury. But research shows that there's a difference between dynamic movement, which is better than static stretching. I did not know that. I just used to think that You just need to stretch and it will prevent injuries. But there's a difference between dynamic and static stretching. And that is something that I want to dive in more. So here, we really want to challenge everything that we have thought about. Using logic and a little fun along the way. So, what is metabolic syndrome? I hear that term, being, especially nowadays. What do you think metabolic syndrome is, Dr. Fonkem?
So, from an overall medical standpoint, metabolic syndrome, like the name says, is a syndrome, which means it's a group of different things that shows your increased risk of overall not being healthy. So those things, I mean, you have, like, for instance, they look at how big your stomach is, all right, your abdominal girth. They look at your sugar levels, which is like a marker of insulin resistance. They look at your triglyceride level, right, which just shows how healthy you are overall. They look at your HDL level, which is like good cholesterol. They want it to be a certain amount, and if it's low, it also is a marker of your health is not doing too well. And obviously your blood pressure, which just again is increased risk of this cardiovascular diseases. So that's really what metabolic syndrome is in a nutshell. And if you look at each of those different points, they mark in a certain disease process.
It has been called a silent epidemic. The reason why, people gain weight, they don't know that they're becoming insulin resistant. High blood pressure creeps up. That is, it doesn't come forth screaming, it comes very silently. And then all of a sudden you have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, you have cholesterol issues. Do you think these are, do you think they have separate root causes, or do you think they have one root cause?
That's a very good question. So for the root causes, again, and like you heard from my background, I have an interest in bariatrics. And I think just obesity itself, is really like one of those big things that affects a lot of other processes in your body. So when you look at it towards metabolic syndrome type of deal, it's really, I think obesity is that root cause or that contributory factor to a lot of those things. When you're obese, you talk about, your blood pressure can be increased, talk about your blood sugar problems, cholesterol problems, talk about that abdominal circumference that we spoke about. So I think obesity is one of those foundational aspects of this metabolic syndrome.
The 5 pillars that Marafiki Wellness Club is looking at restorative rest. It's looking at nutrition, exercise, healthy relationship, and being involved in the community. Most of the patients that I see in the hospital, when I'm writing down the assessment, it seems like most of them have metabolic syndrome, because it's always like diabetes, high blood pressure, hypothyroidism. And they come to the hospital, we treat them for 6 days. And when we send them off, when we are discharging them, we tell them, hey, you need to eat well, you need to exercise, you need to be part of your community. And these patients, most of them go, and then because they don't have the support system to ensure that all of these things are being done, they come back to the hospital, maybe 2 months later, a month later. Seems like it's a cycle. So, yes, I feel like we can have like separate root causes, but I feel like there's an underlying thing, that kind of like knits everything together, because this one person, they go back to the same family, and then they might be out of balance in all of these 5 segments that we're talking about, you know. When it says stress, a lot of these people, they don't know how to manage their stress, you know. That is also, you know, attributing to their, let's say, cortisol levels. You know, their cortisol levels are so high. So that kind of like triggers insulin resistance, you know. So it's like one thing always triggering something else. And all of a sudden we say, okay, somebody has high blood pressure, but what was the root cause? You know, somebody has diabetes. What is the root cause? Do you have any thoughts, Albert?
Well, I don't have thoughts, but I have a question, I guess, for the medical providers in the room. And it might be something that is, you know, it's just something that I know occurred to one of my friends. And, you know, I guess it's a question, right? Because, so you know, we're from Africa, a lot of people from different cultures. When we get the you know, we come to the United States and we get this economic success, right? Or at least some level of economic stability. And we start, you know, I mean, and it's part of the culture where you eat good, you know, you have a good time, everything is fine. And I think there's a perception that as you're, you know, a slim person doesn't look healthy in some of our cultures, right? And so one of my friends actually passed away, and I don't know whether this is a question or a comment or whatever, but he used to work at an office job and he hated it, and then he got into his own business and very successful, and he became overweight and was enjoying the good life, and one day just woke up and, you know, had a heart attack. And, you know, doctors kept telling him, hey, you need to watch your weight, you need to watch your diet. But when you're having this other side of as you say, you know, when you've reached to that level of success, it feels like you're telling me, hey, you know, don't enjoy your life anymore. What are we supposed to do in that instance? Right? Because you come into me, I mean, I come to the hospital, hey, doctor, I don't want to hear about all that. I'm enjoying my life. What as you guys doctors suggest we do in that instance as part of this changing the perception in the community?
Yeah, that's a very good, valid point. It's one of those things which growing up, I grew up in Africa. And growing up in Africa, when you see someone who's what we call today obese, I mean, people really admire that person. They say, wow, you look good, you look healthy, you're rich, you're wealthy, you eat well, right? And you, who's on the leaner side of things, you don't look as healthy. And so growing up, that was a culture that we had, right? Where people wanted to look big and look like they are really wealthy by what they eat. And of course, being educated now, we know that it's not necessarily true. Like you rightly said, someone can look, you know, look fit, but they're really not healthy.
Yeah. So it
There's
seems
also
like
it's also a difference, you know, in a cultural difference, like
Yeah.
Dr. Njoki said. America is completely different than Africa from a cultural standpoint, where we're used to in the hospital saying, "Hey, eat healthy, eat less, or eat this, buy, go." Our residency program tried to train us in getting this whole integrated care system where you know you still follow the patient out of the hospital and try to make sure that, oh, you prescribe them antibiotics, are they going to take the antibiotics? Oh, they keep coming in because of their high blood pressure. You want to make sure they take their medicines. You want to make sure they have these resources. And in the current healthcare system, that's really where we are handicapped because, again, you have so many patients and you're in the hospital, you really don't see the patients again after discharge until they come back to the hospital several weeks later because they did not follow through with what you told them to follow through with. And it just becomes that cycle over and over again. And we actually have a name for that, frequent flyers. You know.
Yeah. It feels like what I hear is the root cause is, you know, simple things, as I said, things being out of balance. Your nutrition is out of balance. You don't know how to manage your stress. Most of these people are isolated. I hear, there's a loneliness, epidemic there. People are kind of like in their own seclusions. So I think it's when all this alternative lifestyle, when it's out of balance, that's when you see all these diseases starting to pop up. Because it kind of, it kind of like always, puzzles me. Well, how one person can have all these diseases. There should be like one root cause, and for me, one root cause is when alternative lifestyle is out of whack, is out of balance, and this is a part of the section whereby I want us to play a little game called Facts or Fiction and see what you have to say. If you don't eat breakfast, your metabolism will slow down. Is this fact or fiction?
Fact.
It's fact? Explain yourself.
We're much, well, I mean, isn't that, I mean, it's a fact to me as a layman. If you don't have breakfast the rest of your day, it's the first meal of your day. So, from a layman perspective, I'm thinking of energy, right? So metabolism and energy to me is, kind of hand in hand. I don't know whether that's a true statement or not, but
Yeah.
I feel like if I don't eat breakfast, then the rest of my day I would either be playing catch up or out of my rhythm, and then things just start going bad from there on. So to me, I feel like it's a fact, but I don't know. That's from my own perspective.
The reason why I like this is because this is a good part, because we're going to challenge everything you think about metabolic health. We're going to use science, logic, and a little fun. This is actually fiction, because when you think about metabolism, it's regulated by overall energy balance and activity, not just breakfast. And actually, our next segment is going to be on intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting studies show metabolism may actually increase, when you skip a meal. Okay, now the next one. Only overweight people get metabolic syndrome. Is this fact or fiction?
That is fiction.
Can you explain?
Like we said at the beginning of the podcast, metabolic syndrome is not just one thing. So it's actually a group of 5 different points. And so if you say only obese people get metabolic syndrome, it means we're just putting the whole metabolic syndrome on that obesity being the only factor that determines it.
Yeah.
Which is not good.
Yeah. Even people with normal weight can have insulin resistance and high blood sugar. So metabolic syndrome is more about body composition and organ function than weight alone. So that's a little bit of fiction there. Fasting is just another starvation diet. What do you think about that, Albert?
Well, I mean, I've done it.
Is that fact or fiction?
Is it a starvation diet? Technically, you are starving yourself, but
is it a starvation diet though?
I don't know if it's a diet, so I would say it's fiction.
Yeah. As we are saying, fasting is a controlled metabolic state, and has a lot of benefits. Like autophagy, which is, the cell gets a chance to clean up, and then you also have, insulin gets regulated, you reduce inflammation, and like chronic starvation, which is deprivation without control. So there's a difference. So fasting is not chronic starvation. So I know we did talk a little bit about metabolic syndrome, and this is something we will probably be talking more in other podcasts. But this is just a little bit, for now, that I want people to know about, unless you have something else to add, Dr. Fonkem.
With respect to
The metabolic
metabolic syndrome? Oh, no, no, no.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
covered it pretty good.
Yeah. When we launched Marafiki Wellness Club, another topic that was very interesting is discussion about critical thinking, especially in a group setting. Critical thinking is very, very important because especially in a group like Marafiki Wellness Club, whereby we say that personal commitment, when we say personal commitment, that means you're coming in with your thought process. Personal commitment is very essential in having lasting changes. So nowadays, a lot of people get the information from the social media. And in that meeting, a lot of people had a lot of questions. And I told them some of the answers that I have to give, I really have to give thought to it. Because this is not a place whereby you cannot get, some pointers, quick pointers without thinking through, Because when it comes to health is not general. Health is very unique to everybody. So there's a lot of social media misinformation. Is there one misinformation that you would like to share that you have heard about, like some health claims out there that you have heard about and you kind of wondered, where did they get this from? Do you have an example?
I don't know if I'm a big social media fan, but I guess I mean there's some um, people that swear by some of this diets, the cayenne pepper and lemon juice and all these things that are supposedly help with cleansing the body. Um, I don't know if there's any what the actual factual things about those are, but there's a lot of um, healthy diets that are followed on social media that I'm not 100% sure that are very well researched. So that's basically what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Dr. Fonkem?
A big health myth
Mm-hmm.
that we hear out there, especially in my line of business, is, patients not believing that when you talk about weight loss, it's really very, calorie is not the only thing,
Mm-hmm.
that affects weight loss. There's a lot that goes into it. However, are very important
Mm-hmm.
for weight loss. Yes, but it's a whole different, it's a whole system which calories play a big role, but it's not the only thing that affects weight loss. Like Dr. Njoki said earlier, stress is huge for
Mm-hmm.
that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, yeah, that's one myth which we hear a lot.
Yeah. And, a lot of people, I mean, for us, uh, when we went through medical school, we had to read research papers. Uh, we had to read about, different biases. But, a lot of people really, even for me right now, you kind of like wake up and see all these in like on social medias, you see all these claims, you have all these, health influencers. And a lot of people tend to believe health influencers over scientific research, I mean, case in point, when Dr. Fauci was talking about COVID, people tended not to believe him. They tended to believe on other people. So there's something along that, whereby people just believe health influences over scientific research. And this is something that we are actually going to dive into more. Maybe we can have another podcast whereby we can learn about how to read research papers. Just, research papers for dummies, I think, something like that, like kind of like making it very, very simple for all of us. Because I remember, when we used to have those statistics questions, I will look at other questions first before I did my statistics questions, because they were always difficult, and most of the time, if I ran out of time, I will just guess. So I think this is something that that we need to be educated on how to look at research. One thing is you need to know is who is funding this study, because they might be biased to the results. And then another thing is what is the sample size of who is being studied, right? Because most of the time they will study like just a small sample of people. Probably, let's say they will sample like a small, maybe 50 men, and then they generalize this study to be okay for everybody. So you need to know what is a large-scale study, what is a small one, what is a biased one. Those are some of the things that we need to really dig deeper. And maybe we can have another time, we can have another podcast, and we can have other people come and talk on this. And most of the time, even when the research has identified one issue, sometimes there's no consensus among experts. So there's so many health, research out there, and the outcome of one research can be very different in another one. So I think before people decide on doing one thing, and if they're basing what they're doing on some sort of research, they really need to dig deeper. So one size does not fit all. We are all individuals, as you can see. So I have this session called Debunk the Hype. So I have this question for you. Juice cleanses, detox your body. Is this debunk or is this confirmed? What do you think, Albert?
You said debunked?
Debunked or is it confirmed? Dr. Fonkem said debunked. What do you think?
Well, I mean, if the juice makes you go to the bathroom, I don't know how they debunk that, Dr. Fonkem. Does it work or no? I don't know. Everything goes through your body.
But you have to remember that your body, your body, like your liver, your kidneys, naturally detox your body. That is the job of your when your liver and your kidneys are functioning optimally, they do detox your body. Juices are high in sugar and they can spike your insulin, so they might taste good. But when you have like a scientific research, quotes in quotes, saying juice cleanses, detox your body, you really have to think through that statement. But a lot of people don't think through it. They're like, oh, that sounds good. That sounds right. So these are some of the things that we need to, kind of like think through. And then another health claim out there is carbs are bad for metabolic health. What do you think, Albert?
It depends on your age. That's what I think. If you're like 15 and you're eating cakes every day, I think that's good for you. But if you're middle age, probably not so good. So is it do we have to put it in context, I guess, of who we're talking about, right? This is from a layman's perspective.
Yes,
my own experience.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And Albert, from my perspective, you're heading the right direction, but I actually look at it a different way. Carbohydrates, there are different types of carbohydrates. Right?
Okay.
And so it's important, right? It's a whole macronutrient by itself. So it is important. It has value to our body. But you have to go specifically into what kind of carbohydrates are we looking at, right? And then we start looking at things like the glycemic index of these other things. And so in the short term, yes, they are important. However, depends on what type we're looking at.
Yeah, I say quality matters, right? Um, whole carbs are essential, while refined carbs like cakes, are problematic. So when you hear things like that, those statements that you hear, carbs are bad for metabolic health, and then they have this influencer kind of saying those kind of statements. A lot of people tend to believe these influencers, rather than people who are doing the research. So here at Marafiki Wellness Club, we are going to be really digging through these kind of health claims and kind of like saying, who said that? Why did they say that? Does it make sense for us? That is the kind of thinking I want for us to have at this club. Another health claim, I hear this a lot. You need to eat 6 small meals a day to speed up metabolism.
I'll tell you right now, my parents back in Kenya, they eat 6 small meals a day, and I think that's something they do all the time. So, does it help with the metabolism? I don't. Personally, I just I think it might be fiction, but it depends on who you're talking to, right? Some people believe
Yeah.
in eating small meals, as Dr. Fonkem mentioned, um, calorie counting, right? In a context of calorie counting, does that work? Does that help where you eat small meals, or does that not help? I guess that would be my question back.
To answer your question, Albert, when we talk about calorie counting, just again, calories are very, very complex, all right? Because when we talk about calorie counting, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. As to what really means a whole lot is really that the difference in the calories, how much is getting into your body versus how much you're burning out. All right. And so when you look at calories like that, a lot of things really affect it. But to go back to the point which you're trying to make with respect to calories, calorie counting is good. And 6 small meals, when you look at how many calories you're supposed to consume in a 24-hour period, it really and Dr. Njoki will probably blow my mind with this, but from my understanding, it doesn't really matter how many times you eat in a day, right? So long as you're staying at a certain caloric limit. Now, how does that affect metabolism? Um, we know that that's not entirely true that you have to eat 6 or more meals in a day to affect your metabolism, because as we heard earlier, intermittent fasting actually speeds up your metabolism. So, Dr. Njoki,
So,
this must you.
he mentioned his family in Kenya eating 6 meals. But what are they doing? What kind of activities are they doing? You see? So meal timing depends on an individual need, right? So if I'm sedentary, I really don't need to eat 6 meals, right? Because eating frequency doesn't really increase metabolism significantly. So meal timing depends on what that individual need. So most of people are talking in Kenya, probably they are going out there farming long hours. They don't, they don't drive around. They walk a lot, So that person eating more, it depends on what he needs. So it's debunked. You don't need 6 meals a day to speed up metabolism. and this is a good segue to the science of fasting. As I told you, I am a function medicine student. So these are some of the things that we are learning. So at our last meeting, somebody asked me about fasting. And I told him, I'm not going to answer that now because I don't want to have to make just a general statement. Because fasting is a science, and you really need to know your body and your state before you decide to fast, right? Because, for example, if you're pregnant You don't need to be fasting. There's some people who can be fasting, and there's some people who should not be fasting. So if children are not advised to fast, right? If you have like some certain disorders, right, like low blood pressure, irregular heartbeats, if you have diabetes, you really need to be working with your healthcare provider, before you fast. But what happens when you fast? Have you ever thought about that, Albert? What happens when you fast?
Well, I mean, if we're going back to the calorie process, when you fast, I guess you stop or you slow down the intake of calories. And so, I think whatever you have your body stored in your body starts to, I guess, use up whatever is stored in your body. And I think that's, to answer your question, that's what I believe happens is your body starts to, I guess, for lack of a better word, eat itself, I guess. So I don't know if that's the truth or not, but that's what I think happens when you start fasting. You're not taking the calories in, so whatever was extra, your body starts to go tap into its reserve. It's like maybe you have electricity in your house and you also have a backup supply, and your electricity goes out, your backup supply kicks in up until the point where whatever juice was in your backup supply is done, then now you probably gonna pass out or something. But that's how I think of what happens when you're fasting.
Okay. I like that. The body eating itself. Dr. Fonkem, what do you have for us?
It is so interesting, when you hear somebody who is not in the medical field talk about this. Like,
Yeah, I love
I mean,
that.
he is really saying, the right things, but in such a very simplified way that, anyone will understand, which is something that we struggle with
Yeah.
in the medical field. So when you look at fasting itself, you're right. Yeah, the body pretty much, looks for the backup. Right? So, and fasting, I mean, what really is fasting, right? It's obviously, like I said, depriving the body of food. Um, but for how long? 30 minutes or 2 hours? Literature says 8 hours, right? When that body goes without food for 8 hours, because that's the time when you start seeing some of those changes that, Albert, you were describing, right? Those backups, where you start seeing your body going into the glucose stores, right? And breaking down those glucose stores to make energy. And now when your body starts breaking those glucose stores, you start getting all those symptoms, right? Like, I'm hungry, I need to eat, right? Because your body's getting into the backup. You're going to your savings account. Okay. But the benefits really comes in when you continue fasting over a prolonged period of time, right? More than those 8 hours, and your body actually starts going into that fat area, all right? Or you start going into ketosis.
Perfect. Yeah. Yes. The way Albert explains, it's very visual, and I like that.
Yeah.
And so, when you're fasting, your insulin levels drop, allowing your fat to be used for energy. And that's what Dr. Fonkem is saying, the ketosis. And also, it allows what we call autophagy to happen. The cellular cleanup, begins to happen. And your growth hormones level increases, and preserving muscle mass. So those are some of the many benefits of fasting. I can give you more. So fasting may improve blood pressure, antioxidant activity, insulin effectiveness, and brain function. And fasting may decrease blood sugar, free radicals, or what we call damaging molecules, inflammation, and triglycerides. So there are so many different types of fasting. So, what you were saying, there's what we call time restricted eating. So it means you only eat during a set window of time, which may range anywhere from 4 to 12 hours. This is also called prolonged nightly fasting. So for example, if you say, my last meal is going to be around 8 p.m., okay, and you say, my next meal, I'm going to skip breakfast. My next meal is going to be 11 a.m., right? So that is a time-restricted eating. So they call it 16-8 plan, whereby you fast for 16 hours and then you only eat for 8 hours. That is a time. They have like different time plans that you can do. Another intermittent fasting is called alternate day fasting. Okay, it's called fasting intervals. So it means a cycle of fasting on one day and then normal food intake the next day. So the days that you're fasting, you're only consuming water and electrolytes on fasting days. So that is called alternate day fasting. And then there's another one called intermittent energy restriction or modified fasting. So one is modified alternate day fasting. This is so like the days that you're fasting, you're eating less calories compared to the other days. There's another one called 5-2 method, whereby for 2 days you take low calories and then for 5 days you take like normal calories. So there are different kinds of fasting and it depends on which one you like. For instance, for me, I like the time restricted eating because I know, okay, if my last meal is at 8 p.m., most of the time I'm sleeping, so I really don't need to eat, right? And normally when I go to work around 7 p.m. I'm so busy in the morning time, I really don't even have time to eat. So the next meal that I'm going to have is when I'm seated down doing my notes. So I've already done my, time restricted eating. And then when I think of all the good things that is going to happen to my body, I'm like, oh, I can do that. So what kind of fasting have you done, Albert? I know Albert, I'll tell you, Albert is, he fasted one time for 14 days, and he was only consuming water and electrolytes for those 14 days. I mean, that was crazy.
Wow.
He has done that. So what did you think about that experience?
It's funny. Yeah, I've done it. I was thinking about it as we're talking. I probably need to do it again. But I was doing the water fast, and as Dr. Fonkem mentioned, I think around the 48-hour mark, everything just starts smelling so good. And, McDonald's is the best thing you can ever think about. Like, everything smells and good, tastes good, everything. So I've done that one where you're just consuming mostly liquid, mostly water, to cleanse your body. And I think I was listening to this. Part of it also had to do with a friend of mine told me that it was spiritual. So you're trying to get that enlightenment. I don't know whether it's enlightenment or you get lightheaded, whichever one. Dr. Fonken probably can tell us the more biological process that's happening, but you get really lightheaded and then you get very clear. Like your brain is just, all the coffee that you used to think was helping you was actually making your brain foggy or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's the one I've done. So I think I'm probably going to do it. It's a 48-hour, the prolonged fast.
Okay.
Not you have mentioned a couple of different ones. The one I've done was the prolonged one. And then I find it very difficult to do the ones that are alternate because I work from home. So there's always food in the fridge. That's a big problem. Yeah.
And I was going to ask Dr. Njoki earlier. I said, it is easy when you're at work and during those early hours of the day, you don't think about food because you have more important priorities.
Yeah.
But what about those days when you're not working? Is it still as easy as it is to go to the time when you're doing your notes before you eat?
So for me, when I'm at home, I see eating as a treat because I work I work most days, right? So when I'm at home, like today, I actually made myself breakfast, which I normally don't do, right? So to me, it's like a luxury, being at home and eating breakfast. I prefer 2 meals. Like if I eat 2 meals, I am good. Um, but yeah, you're right. When you're working, it's much easier. It's much easier. And then at work, my colleagues are always looking at what you're eating. So like we kind of like influence each other like that. So I sit next to Dr. Roberts and Dr. Amin. They're always looking at what are you eating, And I always feel good when I say I'm eating a salad or I'm eating salad and avocados, or when I'm eating something good, we have that peer pressure at work, to eat well. So yeah, but it's easier to fast while working than at home, because as I say, at home it's a treat. Going out is a treat for us. Although nowadays, from our experience, we prefer cooking at home rather than eating outside. We always have something to complain when we eat outside, but when we cook at home, we prefer that more. So what about you? What is your experience with fasting?
Fasting, I honestly think everyone should be able to do some degree of fasting, at least twice a year, which I'm very horrible at, you know. And however, like you said, if you can really get through those first 6 or so hours of fasting, you know, the rest, most of it will really be a lot better. And you have to be a strong-willed person to get through those hours, when it's like all of your cylinders are firing, your body is coming against you. Hey, you need to eat, you need to feed me. What are you doing? Are you trying to kill me? Right? And like Dr. Njoki said, that initial part of fasting, when your body starts using up its sugar stores, the high sugar which is in your blood, your body starts using it up, all right, before it starts breaking up the back of sugar stores. And so your body's freaking out. And that's where most people just, get into trouble, myself included, because you're getting that nagging headache. You're getting that weakness, that tiredness. You just don't want to do anything. You're lazy, all right? And this is really worse when you're at home doing nothing. And so the only thing you think about is, I really want to eat. At work, you forget to eat at work because you're so busy. But when you're at home, you really feel each and every one of these pains. And so if patients really can get past this, if people can get past this, then the next part, which is that ketosis part, that's when you start getting that clear-headedness, where your body is almost on autopilot, all right? And you're just reaping the benefits at that time, you see? And so that's my biggest problem with it. I haven't really fasted in the last year or so, so I think that'll be a good goal for me this year, to
Yeah.
actually very fast.
Maybe try the 16-8, intermittent. That is easier. That is the easiest. I think you can do that one.
It
Just
is
keep
easy
your
for us.
just finish at 8 o'clock and skip your breakfast, and maybe your lunch.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but general advice for intermittent fasting: drink plenty of water, filtered water on your fasting days. Avoid high intensity exercise, while fasting. Maybe you can go for a walk or a yoga or other light to moderate intensity exercise. Be aware of your movement and balance, because you can feel a little bit dizzy, especially when you start fasting. And eat mostly whole and processed nutrient rich food, on the days that you're not fasting. And stop fasting if you feel unwell, and call your doctor, because it could be something else. So if you start feeling unwell, of course, listen to your body. That's very, very important. So this was a sweet, short talk, and I just want to know, what were your getaways from this conversation that we had?
Okay. So first of all, thanks for putting this together. It's I think you just mentioned, even in passing, that some of the things that help you eat healthy is your colleagues. So that whole community, the whole friendship thing, it helps a lot. When you're at home, again, it's hard to stay focused, because again, you're all with yourself and you're just having conversation with yourself. So I think part of the community that you're trying to build is going to be really helpful. Even if it says, hey, let's Dr. Fonkem, hey, let's fast this, let's challenge ourselves to do a fast this year. It just jogs your memory and says, okay, I need to do it, and I need to be accountable to other people,
Yeah.
or at least just to myself, as I re-mention the benefits of it. So for me in this conversation, I just remembered how well I felt when I did the fasting. It's been a while, so you kind of regress, but I think it really helped me just jog my memory on, okay, I need to do this. I've done it before. I need to do it. I've done it, and I'll do it. And I think the other thing is, I guess some of the myths that we busted, or about metabolic syndrome. I think those are, it's and I'm gonna watch this again. There's some things that I probably missed. I'll watch back again and just refresh my memory on what we talked about. Yeah, those are the two takeaways from this meeting.
Yeah, and before we go to Dr. Fonkem, I just wanted to play a little game called Would You Rather? Okay? Would you rather fast for 24 hours or eat only one type of food for a week? Dr. Fonkem.
Wow. Wow. It would probably be easier to fast for 24 hours. Wow.
Uh,
Can I eat the same food for the whole week?
what about you, Albert?
It depends on what it is. Jollof rice for a week. Well, I could eat it for a whole week.
Oh,
So
my
no,
goodness.
I'm gonna go with eat the one type of food for a whole week till I'm sick of it, right?
I think I'm with you, Dr. Fonkem. I'll rather fast, you know. Okay.
I will.
Yeah. Would you rather exercise for 5 minutes every hour or one intense workout daily?
One intense hour and get it over with.
Agreed. Yeah, 5 minutes every hour. Oh my
No,
God.
it's too.
That's much.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Growing up, we used to say, when we get in trouble, it's better you just beat me and get it over
Get your
with,
spanking and get, yeah.
Yeah,
and nag all day long.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Would you rather sleep 4 hours but eat perfectly or sleep 9 hours but eat fast foods daily?
When you say fast food, what do you mean?
Fast
Depends
foods.
on. You talking about Chick-fil-A?
McDonald's,
Chick-fil-A is fast
Chick-fil-A.
food, you know.
Yeah, fast food.
Eat, sleep for 8 hours and eat fast food. Obvious. Yeah, for me anyway. I don't.
What about you, Dr. Funkem?
Oh. Excuse me. Yeah, yeah. You really like your sleep, right?
Yeah,
So you sleep well and you eat your fast food.
yeah.
Are you gonna work the fast food out afterwards?
I
Or
don't
you
know. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the easier way. Get your sleep and eat the fast food. Even though we know what it's gonna do to you
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
No, but listen, actually, poor sleep worsens insulin resistance. So,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I don't function well with 6 hours. My husband knows 6 hours is not for me. I would rather 9 hours. And then
Yeah.
when I go to Chick-fil-A, I can eat their salad, right? They do have options. They do have healthy options. So, yeah, I would rather my nine hours. Yeah.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. So, Dr. Funkem, what quick takeaways will you give to us?
Well, without a doubt, the myth debunked, especially about breakfast and metabolism. That was a big one. It was very easy to call that fact.
Yeah,
Yeah, until you actually brought a different perspective
yeah.
to it.
Good, 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 good. So, for me, of course, was, wellness is about sustainability, not quick fixes, you know. And critical thinking prevents you from falling into health fads. It's very important for us to be able to think for ourselves and actually kind of do our own research. And fasting, when it's done right, is not a punishment, it's actually a tool. Um, and, I do thank you. You guys were my first guests. And I will urge, anybody that is interested in this kind of topics, to join our Marafiki Wellness Club. You can find us at marafikiwellnessclub.com. And there you can look at our calendar. You can see the kind of events that we're going to be having, and, send us, more information on what kind of topics you want us to talk on. Those are some of the things that we we'll be looking forward to. And, and I'm hoping that, you guys can join us in the next podcast in the future. You can, let us know other people that will be interested in speaking with us on this podcast so that we can really inform, our community. Because as you see, a lot of us have those gaps, those wellness, the knowledge gaps when it comes to wellness. So this is a good way of actually filling those gaps. Okay. With this, I say goodbye. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Albert.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Dr.
Albert.
Fonkem. Thank you, Dr.
The
Fonkem.
key takeaways. Metabolic syndrome is reversible with lifestyle change. Critical thinking helps filter misinformation in health and wellness. Fasting, when done correctly, can be a powerful tool for metabolic health. Sustainable wellness is about long-term habits, not quick fixes. For more, please join us at marafikiwellnessclub.com for future podcasts and future meetings. Your health is in your hands, and your community is here to support you. Let's build wellness together. The Marafiki Wellness Club, exploring collective wellness, is our way.